I spend a lot of my day looking at other people's rowing form and working with them to help them make it better. And if you want a form review, by the way, you can always sign up for one down below. But one of the biggest things that I see, I would say this is the biggest issue from people who think they know what they're doing, and that's not to be offensive, but people that have the good mechanics of leg push, body swing, arm pull, from the average person's point of view and from their own, that everything looks good. The biggest mistake that those individuals are making has to do with the handle height, and specifically being on a Concept 2. This is like one of the pitfalls of the Concept 2, I would say. Not pitfalls, but more of like something you really need to be thinking about compared to a lot of other rowers, and that is the height of the handle, and essentially the chain and the mechanism and how it pulls out of the rower. Most people simply, even when the form is correct, have their hands too low. And right here, where my hands are lifted, yeah, that's still too low. I'm not talking about hands here or here. I'm talking about your hands need to be here, slightly higher than the level of where the chain feeds into the mechanism in order to fully get connected from the very start of the rowing stroke. And if your hands are not lifted slightly higher than you think, you are going to introduce slack into the system in the first few inches of the rowing stroke. You can see here that even though my hands are still lifted pretty high, that the chain kind of snaps up into position each stroke. And once the chain actually snaps up into that slight diagonal line of pull, that is where you get connected in the stroke. And for most, that ends up being like halfway through the leg drive. You've missed out on the initial few inches of a strong leg drive. All because you were carrying your hands here and not here. Now you have to be careful when keeping our hands high at the front. That does not mean we keep our hands high throughout the entire return of the stroke. We do not want to introduce tension into our shoulders and carry our arms or punch our arms out like a robot or a zombie. We still want to relax our shoulders and arms on the return, allowing the handle to drop down. But as soon as you pass your knees and you start bending your knees, you start that slight trajectory upwards, up, to load to that raised hands position. So you relax down, pass the knees, trickle up, you're loaded, drive back. So it is a very dynamic motion of the handle. Don't fall into the trap of keeping it high all the way throughout the stroke because your shoulders are just gonna burn. Now, of course, you can overdo this. If you go too high and you take the stroke, the chain will snap back down, but it's always going to snap into the tensioned line of pull. So you can video this for yourself. Set up your camera from the side and take a few rowing strokes and see if you can notice the chain snapping up into position each stroke, or snapping down if you're carrying your hands too high. The moral of the story is you have to carry your hands higher than you think. But once you start doing that, you're going to notice an immediate benefit to your rowing, and it is essential if you want peak performance. Just look at Phil Clapp here, who just recently set the 1,000 meter world record. Look how high his hands are at the front end position of the stroke. It's those high hands that keep you connected, and it's those high hands that are going to make you a better rower as long as you start thinking about it. Once you start thinking about this, it's going to make a huge difference in your rowing. So give that a shot. But if you want to work through everything wrong and good about your rowing form, let's work together through my rowing form review signups down below, and also my follow along rowing workouts on my rowing app, Just Row. Check those out, and I'll see you in the next video.